I think a lot of people that work on the internet and were digitally overloaded long before the rest of the world, Burning Man was this place to go do things off the internet, right? And it was also a place to get into your body and all these kinds of things that are now sort of breaking out into mainstream culture in like a massive way.
Well, it's also like, I mean, Dave, is like usually things die because they win and then they become the mainstream. So the problem is everything is now Burning Man.
Yeah.
So Burning Man is nothing.
Yeah.
We are all Burning Man.
It's on.
Oh, welcome.
Jess is doing her lips. Yeah.
I was just putting on some lipstick so I don't look like a pale ghost now that I'm on the other side of COVID. But hello, friends.
Welcome back.
Wait, you got COVID again?
In between the last recording and this recording.
In between the last recordings, almost
Really?
simultaneously.
A lot of people have COVID lately. What's going on?
Wait, could your kids go to school? Wasn't it the first week of school?
Our children were allowed to attend thanks to the enlightened policies of San Mateo County, where as long as you're symptom-free and you can attend with a mask. So thank you. I think that is an enlightened choice for all school districts. And he missed a day, but was able to join. So we're here for another week, guys, of More or Less, back in the Bay. I see we're not at Burning Man. Raise your hand if you've been to Burning Man.
We've all been to Burning Man.
I'm raising my hand.
I didn't know you've been there.
You've all been to Burning Man.
I've only been once, and it was only for 2 days.
Exactly the same.
I've been twice.
It's been twice.
Twice for 3 days. Total.
Sam, are you the burner in the group?
How many days have you been?
So I've been 3 or 4 times, but I think my sum total of days is like 6. So I'm a very in and out Burning Man. I'm not a real burner by any means.
Same.
I'm a very heavy user of the Burning Man airport.
I don't think you guys need to qualify that. I don't think anyone here is like.
I don't think anyone thought you were
Yeah.
a burner, Sam. Yeah.
I've only used the airport, and I have hated every second of every service project I've ever been forced to do.
We made some great grilled cheese one year.
Yeah, but it's not like I wasn't into it. It's not like my thing. It makes me appreciate capitalism, right? Where like we use this thing called money and trade for things and services with each other.
I was telling Dave that I think it's really interesting. I'm just sending a lot of emails this week to see which out of office messages I get so that I know who the burners really are that I might not have known about before.
They also tell you, like my Pilates instructor's like, I'm not here next week. I'm going to Burning Man. You know, like this
Surprise,
is like
surprise.
Yeah.
It's true. I do think there are some closet burners though. But yes. But what were we saying? It's canceled. It's like Burning Man's over,
Well,
right?
Burning Man is over. Thanks to Starlink, ubiquitous
Oh, come on.
internet access.
Capitalism killed Burning Man.
Burning Man is always over every year because of something, one thing or the
No,
other.
but it's like really over now.
But internet
No.
connectivity is like a key variable here, I think. No?
Starlink's been around for years.
No, but not the portable one you two have.
Yeah, but people were putting that old antenna on the roof of their RVs. This has been going on for years.
When I, as the old burner, went to Burning Man the first time, we were launching some important stuff at Facebook, and the team made me bring a satellite phone in case of a murder. That was the only I had a satellite phone that I could use in case of a real. Now, but then that was before internet came. Then you get Wi-Fi. Now it's just bikini pics on Instagram. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's time. We talked before about how we've gone through a super cycle of internet, and it's come back to reality. I think this is the internet invading reality Burning Man zone.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
There'll be something new. There'll be some extreme new thing that comes. I just don't think it'll be Burning Man. You know, there'll be something else will happen.
Well, weren't they 40% undersold in tickets this year? You think there's a connection?
Yeah, I mean, well, last year it was a total mess, right? It got flooded. To some extent, I think that you're right, Sam, that social media, Instagram has largely brought all of the wrong people to all of the best places. That's been this thing going on for years. I mean, you know, we all do a lot of things in the outdoors. Some of the outdoors places that we go to have incredible search and rescue problems now because they've got way too many people doing dangerous things they shouldn't be doing just to get an Instagram photo.
You hear that, Sam? You hear that? No, just kidding.
Oh my God.
Just
Dave and I
kidding.
talked about this at dinner last night.
I do the things that I should be doing. But yes, I agree. And like you see all these beautiful places that are full of like bikini models lined up waiting for their one photo.
Well, this is influencers in the wild.
Yeah, I love that account.
To some extent, I love it when nature gets in the way and scares the influencers away, which seems to be what happened last year. Like last year, Burning Man was a really big mess and it caused a lot of people not to go back this year. It probably makes it a good vibe out there.
Plus, the reality is like, look, how much, I mean, at this point with AI, you can like post your bikini pic at Burning Man without going to Burning Man.
It's true.
Oh, that's the angle.
Guys, we're really screwing this up. We shouldn't have told anyone we're not there, and then we should have created a bunch of AI Burning Man content.
Well, but you know how like all these people, they have these like shitty, broken, old private jet scenes, and like influencers pay $1,000 to pose like in fake private jets.
Totally.
People need to set up fake Burning Man zones, you know, with like dirt and shit, and like you can, you know,
it's called Joshua Tree, Sam.
I think just for this week's episode, we should do a cover art piece that's us four at Burning Man.
All right, we're doing it.
Okay, that's great.
I like that idea.
How do you do that?
We'll
I don't know.
figure it out.
I got you.
Okay. Just make me look great, okay, Brett?
Oh, yeah. Do you want to be in a bikini or like a weird alien
Just
outfit?
appropriate. It will be posted on the information's website, but you know.
I think the whole point is it's inappropriate. No, but like maybe that's Burning Man's route back is what they do is they seed a bunch of studios all over the country with very high-end fake Burning Man photos. And they get all the influencers to just go there instead, like satellite burn pictures. And then they like make the real thing better again.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah. Lure the influencers.
Sam, they'd have to move the real thing and like not tell all the influencers where it is.
Well, this is the other thing you could do is I actually, you know, it used to be like at like, well, not JCPenney. Where did they used to have like the photo booths?
It was definitely JCPenney.
It was JCPenney.
Glamour shots.
I used to be on the board of Shutterfly, right? Which is they had
I forgot about that.
So I know a little bit about this, but if you told me like the future of like these in-person photography studios was actually quite bright because they basically just get great lights and like you just like you're like I want to be at Burning Man or I want to be on like a Virgin Galactic spaceship and look like I spent 200,000 or I think it's 800,000 now for a ticket to go to fake space. Like I feel like there's a whole business there.
No, you don't need to be at a real photo booth for that. AI can do this.
There's a difference in only to a point. Like you need to do better than the AI can do. It's a war of attrition.
It's getting better way faster than it would take to scale a bunch of these photo booths in old malls. I think in the next 1 or 2 years, you were golden.
What about vans? What about like a dude who like goes around and he's like in a sketchy van with a bunch of lights and like does your photo shoots for you?
That sounds really creepy, especially if
This
it's
thing
Sam
has gone
Lesson.
completely off the rails and we're less than 5 minutes in.
Bring us back, Jess.
We've got a completely different topic we'll get to in 30 seconds. But I think this brings up the point we've been discussing of like what also happens when, especially to social media, when the tools to look amazing and be amazing are just ubiquitous and commoditized. And I think Sam had the probably correct but inelegant point about what do you say, like filters versus like Ozempic? What's your point on that, Sam?
Well, just that like Ozempic is rich people face filters, right? Because it's like it's more expensive, it's in person. Anyone can look good on the internet, but not anyone can look good in real life. So this actually relates to our body thing too. But it's like that's why all the ladies of New York are on Ozempic and even thinner, right?
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, Burning Man was kind of the original. I think a lot of people that work on the internet and were digitally overloaded long before the rest of the world. Burning Man was this place to go do things off the internet, right? And it was also a place to get into your body and all these kinds of things that are now sort of breaking out into mainstream culture in like a massive way. So to some extent, that's like maybe the connection line here.
Okay, we all need to feel the burn.
Well, it's also like, I mean, Dave is like usually things die because they win and then they become the mainstream. So the problem is everything is now Burning Man.
Yeah.
So Burning Man is nothing.
Yeah.
We are all Burning Man.
I like our final conclusion to this.
It used to be that like, you'd be like a corporate lawyer and you weren't going to post bikini pics because that would be inappropriate. But then Burning Man gave you permission to post bikini pics, right? And then now it's fine to post bikini pics as a corporate lawyer and then go be on the Senate floor or something.
It's just boring.
Jess, Sam talks about bikini pics way too much on this podcast. You guys should have a talk about that.
I'm going to take the fifth.
Well, Britt, you're in control of the photo we're going to post today. So, make it happen.
Sam in a bikini.
Jess looks great in a bikini. I'm all for it.
Well, I'm thinking, okay, we'll put a pin in this topic. But for all of you who are listening to this at Burning Man via your Starlink, you're welcome. So, topic for today. So this week, I think there's a lot going on with the government, with tech, with free speech. Obviously, this is ahead of the election and of the arrest, although the release for now, but has to appear again.
It's your classic catch and release.
Well, isn't it an arraignment of sorts? Like he has to come back for trial, right?
Well, he has to come back and it's clear. Actually, he was charged. Yes, you're right. He was charged. It wasn't clear earlier when he was.
Did he have to post bail?
But we're probably. Telegram CEO Pavel, how do you pronounce his last name? Durov,
yeah.
He's just Pavel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Telegram CEO Pavel was arrested in France.
It's going to be very hard for him to put together a jury that doesn't include his children, because he's had so many children that everyone's about to like.
More than Elon?
Oh, yeah.
Way more than Elon.
Britt, there's this Netflix special, The Man with a Thousand Children.
Kids?
Like Pavel went and did something like that. Yeah.
Well, the rumors are even crazier than what's been reported, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Okay. So first, Pavel is the founder of Telegram, as many of you know. Sam, you're actually closest to this. Do you want to give the backstory? Like, why is Pavel and Telegram significant beyond
So Pavel, look, here's the lightning speed version. Pavel basically is a very interesting character, right? There's a positive narrative, if you believe in free speech, and there is a kind of weird narrative. The positive narrative is, look, Telegram and he has always had this very strong anti-content moderation, pro-freedom of speech type, jam. And there is, in particular in Russia, this very interesting set of episodes where they tried to ban it and they couldn't, right? For technological reasons, because Pavel's so smart and Telegram's so smart. And also for cultural reasons, there was this whole campaign where all the Russians were throwing paper airplanes out of their window to protest getting Telegram taken away because it was how they really communicated. So there's this very positive thing. The weird parts are, right? One, Pavel, he basically became famous and started going with VK, which was a kind of a scummy Facebook ripoff.
To be fair, there were a lot of those back then.
Well, but this was one of the key.
But and this became the dominant one in Russia, right?
Well, it was him and the Samwer brothers, right? In Germany, were our two nemesis back then.
But he won in Russia, right?
He won, yeah.
But so did the guys in Germany.
Right.
The Samwer brothers are historically a little more mainstream, is what I would say. But again, I'm not anti-Pavel. I think it's a complicated thing. But the VK thing was a little scummy. It was a little bit not exactly your perfect Silicon Valley, up into the right, story. Then you had the fact that Telegram tells this whole story about encryption and pro-free speech, but it's actually not end-to-end encrypted, right? And so a lot of the crypto world uses it for cultural reasons, but it's not encrypted, right? So it's a really interesting challenge there about who really controls it, et cetera.
Well, isn't it true that it depends on how you use it? There is an end-to-end encryption version. I don't use it, so I don't remember.
You really don't use it at all? I use it.
No.
Everyone uses it.
I don't have it on my phone. No.
Do you do no crypto business?
Do you use Signal?
Yeah, but there's a lot of crypto shit that goes on.
Do a lot of crypto business, but I don't see why I need Telegram.
Because other people are on Telegram. That's how messengers work.
All right. Well, I'll get back on it, and you can add me to crypto things, Sam.
And the third thing is there's been all just weird cryptocurrency stuff. They had an early ICO-y type thing they wanted to launch.
Yep.
There was one of these classic overstatements where it was the kitchen sink. Well, the original TON.
But we were in that. We were doing that original TON deal, Sam, and then it fell apart. Remember?
Did we actually? We didn't wire any money into that.
No. Nobody wired any money, but it was
they
in
pulled
flight.
It didn't happen. Yeah.
No, it did happen, and they sent it back. Whatever. It was a complicated history, but the bigger thing was the white paper that was behind. It was a cool, fundamentally, idea of messengers launching cryptocurrency is an interesting idea.
Yeah,
and there's cool stuff. Wallet plus
it's
messaging.
Still a good idea that hasn't been mastered. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense at a first principle. The problem with the Ton original launches is kind of like one of these, like, it was like an Elon Musk style overstatement of like what was possible and like all this crazy shit that was clearly not possible. Now they did launch a second version and blah. Anyway, it's a complicated story. And then on a personal level, like, you know, it depends who you ask. Like there are plenty of people who really like Pavel. There are plenty of people who think he's super weird, right? And like there's this whole story running around about how he's kind
There's
of
also just a lot of people that don't know him at all that have opinions.
Yeah, obviously, because that's how the internet works. But he, you know, he's kind of a god in certain communities. Like people think really highly of him. And there's this whole story about him having like 100 children all across the country from sperm banks. The story I've heard is way crazier, that he has way more than that and has like this explicit strategy where like people want his sperm because he's Pavel and he's like famous in certain communities and he's doing the Genghis Khan thing. So it's just complicated. It's the internet. It's mucky. It's weird. But, you know, the guy's...
Explain why he was arrested then, for people that don't
just
know.
to
Thank
throw
you,
in,
Brett.
like, I actually know Pavel. Like, we were founders in the same cohort. He started Telegram around the time I started Path. And also I knew him from the earlier days during Facebook. But he's always been a good entrepreneur and a good technologist, right?
Yeah.
He's always kind of been out there. And every time I've interacted with him, like, he's always been like one of the great internet entrepreneurs, one of great product minds. Like, he's really smart. And so I've always kind of known him through that context, but I don't know any of this personal stuff.
Well, it's also just complicated because he like kind of exists outside the Silicon Valley ecosystem, which means everyone has opinions, but no one really knows him, to Dave's point, et cetera. So like, but whatever. The point is like, you know, he has a thing that does a lot of weird shit goes on the platform, and they have a very anti-moderation stance. And he landed in France and got arrested because he hasn't complied with anything.
Here's one other interesting, I think, piece of context around this is that, you know, you can be a free speech absolutist, or you can be a communist, I guess, on the other side, where you believe that speech should be controlled and yada, yada. Like, Pavel and that team takes a pretty absolutist stance, which is quite different than what, like, say, X does or anything on Meta's platforms does. Because Telegram, as far as I can tell, has no algorithmically driven feed. Like, most what people do there is they create channels and they create groups and they build their own distribution, and they kind of let anything happen and let people generate their own reach. Whereas you've got a different thing going on more of the mainstream platforms where freedom of speech and freedom of reach are this constant tension. And Telegram doesn't seem to have the reach problem like the big platforms do. Am I wrong, Sam?
No, I think there's some truth to that, Dave. And like, I think from a product design perspective, but I will say on the flip side, I think the real story here is the internet is so powerful and these platforms are so big that I think it's just impossible in 2024 to believe that any individual human is strong enough to like fight these battles. Like, if you're end-to-end encrypted and you don't have the keys and it's technologically impossible, then we can have an abstract argument about encryption and how the technology works and, you know, things like Bitcoin, which you can't turn off, et cetera. But I just don't think any human can sit in the middle of a platform and hold it together, right? Or has the fortitude to, because they're going to end up getting arrested, right? Like, and people will put force on them.
Let's elaborate a little bit more. So we mentioned in passing, so he was arrested on the charge of somehow, as part of a broader investigation into content on the platform that...
Which there's no context on that, right? There's no context on what broader investigation means. Does that mean other countries are involved? Like, what's that mean?
There's like a 10-point letter.
I think it has ranged, the reporting I've seen has ranged from child exploitation content on the platform to terrorism.
Well, yeah, there's that, but who is doing this investigation that's quote unquote broader?
Correct. Right. So there's very little.
Is it just France? Is it the EU? Is it America? Is
my understanding, I saw some letter that's like a kitchen sink letter. It's like literally here's like 1,000 things, right? Like, it's not one thing. It's like it's a kitchen sink of like every possible thing, which, by the way, every single one of those things they probably cite is actually going on Telegram.
Right.
But there's this other question to me, which is like, what else is going on in the world? Well, there's a giant war going on. Actually, there's 2 wars going on that are pretty major. And I saw some reporting that the Russian military bloggers are going crazy about this because the Russian military apparently communicates almost exclusively on Telegram. So does it have anything to do with that?
I don't know. But I think, so to bring us back though, I think Dave, like the response to this has been, as expected, intense, right? You have Elon Musk and Linda Yaccarino, the CEO of X, like instantly posting, pro free speech kind of things. You had a lot of chatter. Who's next? Who's the next CEO going to jail, right? This is why, we need open source and crypto and all these things to prevent government intervention. But there's also a sense that he got attacked, right? Because he wasn't willing to play ball in any way, in the same way that, with the implication being, platforms around the world are in constant contact, right, with government, but it's a game, right? They give a little, they don't give a little, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's been a really interesting reminder of what the relationship is like between these platforms and law enforcement. And then also a question of like, what room is there to take different positions or stances like Telegram seems to be taking? I'm curious what you guys think. Like, should there be platforms that are entirely outside of moderation for things like child abuse, terrorism, so forth, or not?
So the quick answer is yes, but I think they actually have to be technologically complete, right? I think there are two problems in the Telegram
those
case.
Exist, right? There are technologically complete platforms.
And candidly,
and
Apple.
What do you mean by that? Right. So you mean like completely end-to-end lockdown?
Well, and ideally distributed and unstoppable. I mean, the problem I think is you can't, in 2024, you can't write checks, you can't cash and expect to get away with it, right? And I think the problem with Telegram is that they wrote a check around a certain set of policies and they can't cash it because of how the platform is actually architected and works and what it's set up to do. Now, I actually believe from a first principles perspective that the idea that you could have every bit of digital communication intercepted, stored by government is a real problem, right? And but I also think on the flip side, again, it's not, you can't fake it. It actually has to work that way from the ground up or you're going to get caught. Now, I will say to your point, what's interesting also about Telegram compared to some of these other services is in general, everyone else who runs something like this, the WhatsApps of the world, iMessage, etc., they're all really fucking good businesses. And so they can afford the lobbyists and the games to play, and they figure out compromise routes. They have more power. But what's interesting about Telegram is it was this thing that was basically acting and writing checks around privacy that it couldn't technically cash. And then they didn't have the same war chest. It doesn't have the same power in society to keep people out of jail, right? I think is what's going on. And so there's this interesting thing where you just have to acknowledge that these big tech platforms are playing global geopolitics, and you do not want to show up to the table short stacked if you're doing that, which is effectively what Telegram did.
Yep.
How is Signal competing? Because isn't Signal looped into the same group as Telegram in that capacity?
Yeah, but it's technically complete.
Meaning it's fully encrypted.
Yes.
In all cases.
They can't give the keys if they wanted to.
Yeah, and I think, look, Signal is a great thing to call out, Britt, because I do think if you think about who's short stacked in this game, who doesn't have enough power but is playing at these levels, Signal is on that list.
Right, they're the only one doing it. Yeah.
But I think the flip side is Signal, again, this might be, someone push me if I'm wrong about this, but if you think about Signal, it's technically complete from the encryption side. You could in theory say that you kick it out of app stores or something.
Sure.
But interestingly, then you're back to actually it being an Apple thing and a Google thing, and Apple and Google aren't short stacked, right? They're dealt in, they're playing the full game, etc. So look, I think there's a lot of problems with it. I was really against, I think this child porn is always the issue people use to wedge into everything else because no one wants to argue in favor of child porn. But even that, we're well, it's encrypted, but we're going to fingerprint to know if you're sharing child porn is all really fuck. I mean, this is all the negotiated stuff that I actually think is bad. I think that's give you mouse a cookie thing and going to end in tears long term. But I don't know. Right now we're in the power gameplay.
You're okay with encrypted. You're not okay with it, but you don't think platforms should face any consequences for transmission of child porn if they're encrypted end to end?
Well, I think if it's encrypted end to end, you wouldn't ever know.
Yeah, you can't know. Jess, you would have to make a policy decision that says encrypted platforms cannot exist.
Yeah, I don't disagree with this, but just to play this out for a second. So if you take out like there's a discussion to be had about the content period. And if the answer to whether or not there should be consequences for transmitting it is basically, well, have you built the technology to make it not feasible to do it? Those seem like somewhat orthogonal questions to the principle, right? Like, because it's sort of, you can ask me like, well, is it wrong for me to do X? And it's like, well, if I build a way to make it impossible for you to do X, then I've solved that moral argument.
No. Here's the way I would think about it is, again, what does technology do? Is like, historically, if we want to speak to each other, there's nothing you can't say. We can sit in the back of the bar, say whatever the fuck we want to each other, share any idea. There's no one who can regulate you or stop you from doing that in the back of the bar in the physical world, right?
Unless they're listening to you and they come in and punch you in the face, right?
The bar owner can kick you out.
Yeah, I mean, again, but the basic point is like the medium itself has no inherent control, right? And that's actually very important, that any mode can say anything it wants to any other node. In technology land, we now pretend like we're speaking to each other directly, but we're not. It's all mediated. There's someone in the middle. Right?
And by the way, anonymity. In the bar example, you are yourself. You're not anonymous.
Yeah. I actually think that the answer has to be full freedom of speech, but nothing's anonymous, which is a whole other philosophical view of the future. But like, my basic view is like the fact that the question is the medium like air? Can you say whatever you want? And yeah, like you shouldn't do child porn. You want to have a law against it? Raid my house. You know what I mean? Like, you want to like build a case against you, but you can't just sit there in the middle and like argue that, well, I need to be able to listen to everything you're saying because you might say something bad, right? Like, that's kind of the thing I think is bad. And I would say that there are very clever ways around this. So Apple will say, well, we don't.
Yeah, I mean, this was the Orwellian future that, I mean, literally 1984 was written about.
Totally. And like, so the thing we're in now is this game of chicken where everyone's like, well, it's encrypted, but we can't defeat this child porn argument. So we're going to like create a fingerprint and we'll know if you're sharing child porn because of the finger. And it's like, I get it. It's very clever. But the reality is once that technology exists, it's going to be used for other shit. Right. Yeah. And like that slope is really bad, right? From my perspective.
Yeah. And Jess, I think there's a higher level. If you really want to get into the moral questions here, you have to get up to the highest level, which is you actually have to ask the question, should encrypted technology be legal at a policy level or not? You can go down one level and be like, well, what's transmitting over this technology and should we pay attention to that and all that kind of a thing. But you have to like get into the higher level question, which is the one Sam said, which is, should these apps exist in the App Store at all? Does America or whoever want to stop these from existing inside of its policy framework, and then therefore, just make it impossible for that technology to exist? Like, that's like I think that's the real question.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's being debated in the EU right now, right? Like they're actually debating whether or not to ban encrypted technology. And that's like actually the bigger question to ask.
Which is wild. I mean, go back in the history, like if you remember, exporting encryption in the early days of the internet was technically illegal. This is like, I think, pre-Bill Clinton.
It still is.
Is it?
I literally, Sam, I just put an app on test flight and I had to agree to not be exporting encryption.
Interesting.
It was the last thing. I was like blocked from like pushing it out into test
flight.
Explain
what that means for people.
What does it mean to export encryption?
It means to like let a foreigner, so basically in the early days of like Netscape, you had to like click a button being like, I'm an American, I'm in the US, because technically using encrypted communication on the internet, if you were giving it to a foreigner, was illegal. And the reality is, without encrypted technology, you don't get Stripe. You can't pay for shit on the internet, right? Like, also, It's a ridiculous thing to say as a weapon you can't export, because people used to like print it like in the encryption algorithms on T-shirts and walk across like country lines. You're like, I just exported encryption because this fucking equation.
Seems
you can't
like something
stop
you
it.
would do, Sam. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. But the basic point is like this whole thing about like, can you stop encryption? Like, it's pretty hard to stop a thing that like you can write on a T-shirt.
I'm pro encryption. I feel like encryption is good. I don't know, Britt, what do you think?
I was swayed by Sam's example of the bar, even though it had flaws in the example. But I agree. And
what are the flaws?
Okay.
Well, I think the flaw is like the bar owner could overhear you and then kick you out. So it's not really, you can't just say what you want.
What if you own the bar?
Then that's that's not what his example was.
What if it's like a public park in the corner?
If it's a public park, that's a different story, Sam.
Is it? America owns the park. The people own the park.
I think wasn't this the whole you guys grew up in your career at Facebook, and that was the whole thing, right? You should be able to talk in town square and say the things you want to say and be able to be yourself. And so I agree, but there is so much bad shit that's getting said on these encrypted platforms.
That's just the problem, isn't it? So look, this is like, everyone's like, well, I love saying anything you want except for the bad stuff, right? You're like, great, let's argue
about
like
an alert of some kind when you think people are passing along
That's what Sam's talking about, Britt.
Why isn't that a good solution?
Sam's referring to what iOS has in it, which is iOS. I haven't looked at how it technically works, but
Facebook does this too, by the way.
Theoretically, how's it work, Sam? You fingerprint.
You basically create a fingerprint of like the hash of the image or some bad shit, right? And then you see if it moves across the line. You don't actually have to know what it is or decrypt it to know that the hashes match. So you're like, oh, bad shit. And the problem with this stuff is it's classic if you give a mouse a cookie product management, which is like, once you do that, you're like, sure, you're using it for really bad shit now, but like in 6 months, someone's gonna be like, we need to stop people from saying X. Let's use that thing we already built, right? It becomes a Pandora's box of badness. And look, my basic view is like, even in Russia, we all are friends with Stan Chudnovsky, the godfather of growth, great guy. And he once told me this funny line.
Best growth person of all time.
He had told me this funny line I loved, which is like, look, Sam.
He'd be great on the pod, by the way.
We should get Stan.
Why haven't we gotten Stan on the
Stan,
pod?
we're coming for you.
Stan told me this funny joke, which is like, he grew up in Russia, and he's like, even in Russia, during like the communist era, the USSR, it's like, it wasn't that you didn't have free speech. You just might not have freedom after speech. Right? And I think that there's actually a very important difference between that, which is with the internet, without encryption, you basically can stop people from saying things, period, right? Saying, hey, I'm going to say something that's really bad and the state's going to hate it and I might get arrested for it is a very substantively different human experience with different guardrails on it to keep rogue states from doing bad shit. Versus being like, I can technologically pre-block, right, all speech crime, right? Which is the direction I think that lots of states would want to go in. And by the way, Britt, to your point, they're not doing it because they're bad people. They're like, yeah, this shit's really bad. The question is like, what cost are you willing to pay, right, from a long-term societal standpoint to stop bad speech, right? That's the question.
There's so many issues related to, Sam, the thing that made me think of is the topic we've brought up a few times on the pod, but this old idea that you and I have been debating for a very long time of national identity stacks, and that America should provide a identity authentication framework of some kind where when you log into the internet, you can log in with your America ID. Because as you're talking, one of the things I'm thinking about is like freedom of speech inside of America. Who is guaranteed that right? Are people outside of America guaranteed the right to free speech inside of America? Right now, we let a lot of people from outside of America have conversations inside of our digital borders like all day long, and it causes all manner of problems, right?
Yeah.
And nobody ever talks about this, right? That like, what does this actually mean on a global basis?
Yeah, look, just to riff on this for a second, my whole thing has always been on this. You play this out, and this is like these are not novel thoughts. People have been talking about this for 20 years. I think, to Britt's point, you can't have full free speech and anonymity. I actually think that's too dangerous, right? Like for the reason you're talking about, especially as we get into the bot world and AI or whatever. So like the thing I believe in is that you should say whatever you want, but say it in your own voice. You have to stand behind your words, right? And if you're willing to say something and face the consequences of having said it, great, go nuts, right? But like you basically have to choose. You think about this, like if you're gonna have anonymous speech, there's a strong argument that if you're going to allow anonymous speech, you really can't allow anything to be said. But if you're willing to put your name on it and sign it, you should be able to say whatever the fuck you want, right?
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I think we've solved this one, Jess. Should we sell them? Should we let everyone know in France?
Well, it's funny because as Sam, you were saying that, I'm going, well, Benjamin Franklin didn't do that. And there was like a big part of early America, Hamilton, Franklin, all these guys, they were writing under many pseudonyms, right? Like a big part of the creation of the American framework for this was that they used pseudonyms.
Simpler times, Dave Morin. Yeah, but Dave, I think the answer, what's interesting is, to your point, there was a third factor at play there, which is no longer at play, which was cost and distribution. So in the early American Revolution, it's true that people used pseudonyms and like they did publish anonymously and were saying things, but we had these like natural barriers built up, which is like actually getting your speech distributed and when they give a shit about it, right? Was like physically expensive. Like you needed access to a printing press.
Yeah. Famously, Franklin did all kinds of things to get access to printing presses.
Right? Totally. And so like for me, like they had, so I actually think that like it was a simpler time because there was inherent cost and friction in production and distribution at a period we are now in where the cost of production and distribution is zero, right? If you think about it, it's like, it's content. What did we say? There were three things. It was, well, it doesn't matter. I'm forgetting. It's a long time ago. But like the upshot is like, I just think if like production costs go to zero, then you basically have to say, I think you have to trade between free speech, but speak in your own voice and sign it, right? Or not free speech and you can do anonymous weird shit, right?
Should you be able to speak freely inside of America's borders if you're not an American citizen?
No.
Like if you're sitting in India or I don't know, like in Japan or Germany or the UK, should you be able to just be on the internet, like getting incredibly free speech and incredibly deep distribution inside the United States?
No.
Why not?
It's an interesting question, right?
I mean, my personal view on this is the same reason why I think we should ban TikTok, right? Which is like free speech is meant to like, it's not like a right for the sake of being a right? It's a right to make our country stronger, right? And to make, and to like promote our people. If you give free speech, unlimited free speech to everyone globally, when you recognize there's 300 million Americans and 8 billion people on Earth, right? The incentives are just fucked, right?
Which is what we're dealing with every election, basically.
100%. And so for me, it's like,
do you think water is a right of 8 billion people?
Now we're getting into, you want to get into water economics?
I want to understand. I see your argument, and I kind of feel like free speech is not more important than water. But like, there's a spectrum of rights, right? Are there some things that are just by being human you have a right to in this world? I would say yes.
Well, that's like the $1 billion. That's a big question for all of society. I think we've massively overextended what quote unquote rights are. People are, we have a right to healthcare. We have a right to all this shit. I'm like, those are not rights. Those are things that like
cost actual money. Yeah,
it'd be nice to have them, but like I think people have. I think because rights, the word is so powerful, and people have things they believe in. They've massively extended what a right is.
But we can narrow down to this question, right? Jess is asking a specific question, right? We can narrow it down.
Well, no, but we don't have to go into water. I think it's just making the point that there's a spectrum of where would you draw the line. I mean, I'd like to live in a world where anyone around the world can wake up and not be imprisoned for speaking their mind.
I agree.
As chair of the Committee to Protect Journalists Gala this November, coming to New York City, I feel this pretty deeply.
But Jess, you of all people know that this isn't a truth in many, many countries around the world.
Oh, of course. We are far, far from this world.
Especially for women, by the way.
So should people from the countries where that is not the framework be able to just walk into the American internet and do whatever they want?
I mean, I think it depends what I would say no, but they shouldn't be able to do things that we've deemed illegal. I mean, they should be subject to our laws, but I see it more as you're subject to the laws of the places where you live.
But then you're anti-encryption.
I'm
because
not,
I have to know whether people are following the laws or not.
No, I'm not anti-encryption. I think encryption is important.
Private spaces on the internet are as important as they are in the physical reality.
I personally would say that we talk about rights. I think the right to speak in private to other people, right?
Free speech, but not free distribution.
Which basically is encryption. I think I would go so far as to say, like, again, universal rights of man mean nothing because we live in a society of countries and countries make their own rules, right? So this
universal
whole
rights of man or woman. Yeah.
I mean, that UN baloney, right? Of like, is like, it's just ridiculous, right? It's just like, it's aspirational bullshit. It's not how the world actually works. I personally would love to live in a world where you said, like everyone has a right to encryption. But I think what's more apt is to say, look, you can't stop people from like the reason they don't have a right to encryption, but practically speaking, it's a pretty simple algorithm, right? Like how are you going to stop them, right?
Well, is AI going to break encryption?
AI won't, but quantum will.
Well, you'll need different.
Okay.
You'll have a different type of encryption. You'll have
You need
encryption.
quantum encryption. But Jess, this is actually a really good point, which I think is the even higher level point here, which is that nation states have enormous resources and spend enormous resources to break encryption, find backdoors, like do all kinds of things to make sure that they can listen to your phone if they want to. And it doesn't matter whether you're on Telegram or Signal, nation states will find a way. And that's actually a truth that I don't think a lot of people realize, that like you're just outgunned, right? Like it doesn't matter what you do to a phone or to a piece of technology.
This is so great. I hate to bring up scenes and shows Sam and I watch but 24 hours before, but that's what my brain does. Upon some recommendation, maybe from someone on this podcast, watching The Mayor of Kingstown.
Nope, not from us.
Very violent.
Super
Very violent. But basically, there's like law enforcement and the drug cartels or cartels. Yeah, I guess cartels. And
Mafia.
Then these like middle people. And at one point, the drug dealer is saying, like, I don't want to talk on the phone. And then the middleman is just laughing. He's like, there's an FBI van 10 feet away that like intercepts all your calls.
Well, so. I mean, but said differently, this is you go back to like the whole Snowden stuff. And I remember my reaction to Snowden. Everyone was like so outraged that the NSA was doing this. And I was just impressed. I was like, I thought they obviously would do that if they could. It's just impressive. Like I didn't realize they were that resourceful or good.
So let's bring this back to Telegram for a second. And also, I mean, look, every couple of months, every few years, we see exactly this debate flare up, right? The question of, what government backdoor should there be? What's the relationships between law enforcement and the platforms? It seems like the trend has been these half compromises, right? Which is also, I think, very in line with actually, you could look at any regulatory issue, antitrust, privacy, whatever. And it's sort of like, I mean, this is why these privacy bills or these app store regulatory bills are just kind of like, the big guys are going to build the kind of half hack that isn't really going to matter. So is that where this is going, or is Telegram kind of crystallizing something else?
Can I try? I think what's happened is that if you go over the arc of kind of our careers in the internet, is there was kind of for many, many years, this like, we're going to let the internet be the internet thing globally, right? Where like, it was kind of like an implicit, like hands off the internet set of policies from globally. And in Europe, you started to say, they'd be like, we're going to put our hands on the internet, right? And like start to like muck with it and create, the right to be forgotten and different policies.
It started with China, to be fair.
China for sure. All these nations are kind of nibbling a little bit, but the reality is the internet actually, while there was kind of an agreement to hands off, it got super powerful. And you had the Apples and the Googles and the Facebooks, and they got sufficiently powerful. They got to the bargaining table, right? And they're able to do it. But so it goes back to the thing we said first, which is like, I think the key for this era of the internet is you can't do things the government really fucking hates unless you show up with an army, and you can't get outgunned that way. And like the thing like Telegram is just doing something that is they can't hide behind we're part of the internet. They're instead, it's just like, look, you're outgunned. You have no money on a relative basis. You have no political connections. You have no clout, and we don't like what you're doing.
And I think there's this other thing. I actually wonder, I really do think this question that I asked at the beginning could be hiding behind this here, which is like, they're potentially throwing up a smokescreen about all of the bad things going on Telegram, when it could actually just be an act of war that we're looking at right here, where if it's true that the Russian military uses this as their primary mode of military communication, like the EU wanting to, impact Telegram for XYZ reasons could actually improve the war outcome. And like, that's like I think that's a real vector.
I think everyone in Ukraine uses it too, but yeah, I mean.
So what do you guys think is going to happen here? Is Telegram still around?
Yeah.
In its current state a year from now? But everything's the same?
Well, I do think the story, though, what I would say, though, is I think it's going to be pretty hard. I think the lesson here, again, from the don't get outgunned is yet again, the big get bigger. Because I do think that in the end of the day, we're going to be reliant upon Facebook, Apple, and Google to defend free speech on the internet, right? Because they're the only ones powerful enough, or crypto, or it's like a crypto decentralized.
That's what I was just going to say, is that like, unless we see something in crypto like XMTP or something of the like, that becomes a decentralized protocol that we can depend on, right?
Yes, and I will say, as a crypto fanboy and someone who's believed for a long time, as I know Dave has as well, and I think Britt and Jess, but they can push. But he's like, look, this is a place where no matter how strong you are, you're not as strong as the government. So Pavel's really weak, but the class of the Elons and the Zucks and the other people are going to be they're much stronger, and I would trust them a lot more. But like, they also have physical bodies and like can go to prison. And so at a certain point, like, you really have to rely upon technological solutions because no human is strong enough to resist coercion.
Well, this is sort of really relevant to just a small related topic, which is this week it also came out that Mark Zuckerberg had written to Congress saying that the US government had overreached in terms of COVID, pushing back against, I guess, what was perceived as, at the time, as potentially dangerous content about COVID, and said clearly that it was an overreach and that the Facebook shouldn't have responded, sort of giving a huge win to Elon Musk and all of those who say that the government has been censoring basically social media. And I'm curious what you guys made of that letter. I mean, obviously every letter written by a CEO of Mark's stature is very calculated, very planned, very thought out.
I mean, I trust him. Like, that probably wasn't overreach.
But why did he have to come out and say that now? That's like such a random, also random time to do this in the middle of the election. Yeah, it feels very political to me, which is
has nothing to do with anything going on with Meta, as far as I can tell right now. So that suggests that it's political.
I mean, sure. But I don't know. I think in the end of the day...
I think it's both. I think at the end of the day, people like Mark really do believe, right? And do regret some of the steps that they took in the kind of heat of all of that.
Yeah, but Jess, at this moment in time, that's a right-wing hand grenade.
I said both. And I completely agree. It's designed to, get some support from conservatives.
Harris was talking about unrealized gains tax, which really only impacts like 5,000 people, and Zuck got pissed.
No, I don't think it's...
Wait, did she say that?
What?
Yeah.
Did she say she's going to do the unrealized gains tax?
Dave, we've all been living in an unrealized gains.
Were you not on the internet last week?
I'm not. I'm like out. I don't... Politics, I don't know.
Have you somehow realized your gains and not care about this?
Go realize those gains.
This is the question. Everyone assures me that you do not have to go realize your gains, but I'm terrified.
Sam wakes up being like, "Can we realize our gains?"
We have to realize our gains before the end of the year.
It's like, why do you think shit's going down? As people are realizing their gains.
That's what I'm saying.
Realize some gains.
Look, my basic view, honestly, I don't know anything about this from any other, just emotional, but if I were Mark, not being him, like, I just feel like you want to get the fuck out of this business and be back in neutral land, right? And you're just like, like, if there's like hangnails of stuff hanging over, I would personally, Sam Lessin, be in the mode of just like, I am just cleaning the palette. Here's the shit. This is what I think. I am a neutral player. I'm out of this shit. And look, the problem is, to the point about law enforcement, whatever, it's like, it's kind of hard for them to be fully out of anything, right? Because everyone's got hooks in globally. And so it's really hard. You'll never actually fully cleanse your palate. But the political shit, you can at least kind of be like, I don't want to play this game anymore. And I'm sorry I tried, right?
I love the idea of this being a palate cleanser.
Ugh, it's like, just this did not taste...
What else does he need to cleanse?
It didn't taste good.
What else needs to come out?
We'll find out. I bet it'll cleanse the palate.
Yeah, what's next?
Before his amuse-bouche.
Like all before November? Like, you think this is all cleansing before November?
Cleanse it all. You got to get back to...
You got to do a prolon cleanse.
Yeah. It's like, you got to be true neutral. You can't be chaotic neutral or, whatever.
Look, just for the people connecting the dots, and I completely agree with Sam, there was the calling Trump's response to the assassination attempt badass. Palate cleanser number one. There's this letter,
but like, none of these are palate cleansing to the right wing. There's no left happening here.
I'm confused about this.
All of this suggests that he's gone hard right.
The whole point of a palate cleanser is just not to anyone. It's just being like, I'm just done. I want to eat my amuse-bouche in peace. Like, this is what I think. Let's move on.
I think that I'm confident that's the attempt. I think the question will be sort of how this plays out, right? And we don't know, and no one knows. And that's why it's politics. But it's certainly interesting. Okay, Britt, you've got a good way to send us into this Labor Day weekend.
It's a little bit of a PCC, Pop Culture Corner.
Wait, what happened to Sam? How is Sam in Jessica's box now?
Sam and Jess apparently are on different Wi-Fi
The
networks.
pool house broke.
I have more backup networks.
Maybe you were censored and they wanted to shut you down. All right. So we're going to play a game. Spotify just announced the global top 5 songs in the summer based on all their data. And I want to see how many of these songs Sam knows. All right. So
Yep.
first of all, I'm going to guess 2 out of 5 is my guess. So let's see if I'm right. Okay. Billie Eilish, Birds of a Feather.
Can you sing it for me, or do I have to know it by name?
No, you need to sing it for me.
No, I'm aware of Billie Eilish, but I don't know what this birds.
You don't know Birds of a Feather.
Birds of
Okay.
a feather, they flock together. You want to make it up?
All right. Next one. Chappelle Roan, Hot to Go. Can you sing it?
Is that the yellow song? The Brat song?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. 0 for 2. 0 for 2. All right. Kendrick Lamar, Not Like Us.
Again, I'm aware of this person as a human, Kendrick Lamar. But if you sing it, can you sing the first
To be
line?
fair, it's hard. The title of a song.
Why would I know
doesn't-
these things? They
Yeah.
just play on Spotify. Give me the beat drum or something.
Okay. I'm going to give you the next one. Sabrina Carpenter, Espresso.
You know that I don't know what that is.
Really? You haven't heard that one?
Of course I've heard it. I don't know what the fuck any of these songs are called.
Oh, man.
Jess, is this
Oh, yeah.
true?
Yeah, I don't know any of the words to this, but
Ah,
I'm aware
okay.
of
He knows
the
that
song.
one.
Okay. I'm ready. And it goes, nice. Okay. Last one. A Bar Song by Shabuzi.
Oh, such a jam.
Oh, you know this one.
I know all these songs.
That
I
was
don't know
the
what they're
jam of the
called.
summer.
Oh yeah. Woo.
He got it.
Yeah.
He got
I'm going to go 2 out of 5. I think I was right. I think I won
Yeah.
this.
I know.
bet.
Britt, I don't like your insinuations. I am aware of all of these songs. I could probably hum them all to you, but I have no idea what they're fucking called.
HOTTOGO. You know that one?
Sam, to be fair, that song is the song that we were referencing on the pod like 2 episodes ago, where everybody was dancing to it at Lollapalooza.
Listen, I click on Popular Now on Spotify and trending. I'm aware of all these things, but I don't know what they're called because no one knows what they're called. They're just noise.
Yeah, that's true. I think we have to make
Yeah,
that.
I'm disappointed that the Post Malone Luke Combs song didn't make it into the top 5.
What is that one? Sing
This
it.
is global, though. So this isn't US.
Oh.
This is just, yeah,
Well,
that's
Dave
why.
is
This is
in a total Post Malone phase.
That's the man with tattoos on his face.
I had some help, was what
Good
it was
job,
called. Sam.
yeah.
He has lots of tattoos on his face, which is very aggressive.
His new album's
Okay.
amazing.
All right. Well, it was a fun experiment.
Wait, here's the Post Malone song.
Yeah, I know all these songs. Guys, you just don't understand. I get it all. But
The jam
I just
of the
don't
summer.
You know who doesn't know these songs?
Oh, no.
No, you
Jessica
know all of
Lesson?
them.
Jess, come on. That's the best wake surfing
I
song
know
of the summer.
like 3. I know 3. I'd get a 3.
What? No, you would know all. I mean, I actually, for what it's worth, though, I think Jess is right. I actually think I could hum more of these songs than she could because she doesn't click on the trending button, and I do. And so
I make my own playlists based on my mood.
Guys,
you
when
know?
we have our more or less stadium event, we're going to have like a gamified section in the middle of it.
Look, our kids have way better taste than this, though. Our kids just want to listen to AC/DC right now. I'm very proud of them for it.
Same.
Thunderstruck. Ryan's learning it on the piano.
Queen and
Thunder.
AC/DC are their 2 favorites. That's so
No,
funny.
come on,
Ours
Britt.
too.
No, Zeppelin and AC/DC are their favorites.
Yesterday they asked for Queen. Just saying.
All right.
I
It's
love
fine.
Queen.
We love Queen too. Okay, party friends. Speaking of party, Labor Day weekend.
You inviting everyone on the pod to our house?
I'm not inviting everyone on the pod to our house. I am inviting the Morans.
We'll be there. We'll take a more or less
Guys,
part.
our show is not that big, but it's not that small.
I didn't say when or where on Labor Day weekend. Also, happy US Open to all who celebrate.
Yeah, it's
It can
it's
be
going
a very
awesome so
exciting
far.
2 weeks.
And college football starts this weekend. Woohoo! Dave's wearing a CU hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're on. Yeah, go
Coach
Longhorns.
Prime, let's go.
We're very busy. We better leave this podcast and finish our day jobs to enjoy Labor Day. I also want to give a shout out to all the parents out there trying to figure out their fall schedules for their kids and
God.
making it
Good
work.
luck with that.
If you're crazy, you're in good company. And thoughts and prayers to you as well. So
Thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers.
with that, I'm going to get in trouble for
What
saying
is this,
that,
the Senate?
but I
Yeah.
believe it. So with that, thank you to everyone for listening. As always, we've been delighted by the response to recent
Yeah.
episodes. So thank you
been cool.
guys for listening, for
Even
sharing.
the bad ones.
Even
Yeah,
the bad ones.
totally. The bad ones
You'll
get
also
some of the best.
notice that I figured out how to use the AI to get transcripts. So we got full transcripts up on the information. We got video clips coming.
And there might be a secret merch project going on. Is that?
There is a secret merch project. And with that, we'll see you guys here next week for another episode. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this show, please leave us a virtual high five by rating it and reviewing it on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Find more information about each episode in the show notes and follow us on social media by searching for @MoreOrLess, @DaveMorin, @Lesson, @JLesson, and as for me, I'm @Brit. See you guys next time.